or power options, stop in today and save 20% on Ken Michaels Furniture on Capitol Drive in Brookfield, Highway 100 in Greenfield, or our downtown factory showroom. Get a better night's sleep and save money on a Milwaukee mattress. For over 70 years, our family has been making mattresses and selling them direct to your family. By cutting out distribution costs, you can save up to 50% and get a better night's sleep on a premium mattress. Go green with natural latex. Reduce tossing and turning at night by reducing pressure points on your body. This is one of our most popular mattresses. Stop in today and take a test rest at any of our Ken Michaels Furniture locations in Greenfield, Brookfield, or downtown.
Call quality for the signature service you deserve.
For 60 years, we've been known as Quality Heating, offering the highest levels of HVAC expertise. But when I took over for Greg, I saw the potential to add services for all your home needs. We do heating and cooling so well, I figured, why not offer new trades to give all-around home service to our customers? So along with heating and cooling, we now offer top-flight plumbing and electric services. There's no subs here, and we all work under the quality code of taking pride in the Midwestern work ethic, and more importantly, Midwestern morals. You know, much of our trade has gone corporate with private equities, but we remain a family-owned company. This is Anthony Zanevsky with Quality, offering heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric. For the signature service you deserve, call Quality.
Call quality for the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality, now offering heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric.
WTMJ, W277CV, and WKTI HD2 Milwaukee from the Annex Wealth Management Studios. This is News Radio WTMJ, a Good Karma brand station. Now that the game is done, it's our time to check in.
Rollins, he'll tee one up from three, and he finds the bottom of the net again. Ryan Rollins with his second three ball of the game.
Bucks Talk starts now.
Fades and fires on the baseline. What a shot. I'll tell you, he is back. Chris Middleton's got 21 points now, and it's been shots like that throughout this game tonight. He is looking razor sharp.
Live from the Annex Wealth Management Studios, here's Justin Garcia and Brandon Snide.
Another impressive win tonight for the Bucks, who take down the Chicago Bulls without Giannis and without Damian Lillard. And in some ways, a carryover from what we saw Saturday night against the Wizards, where there are a number of guys that gave you big contributions tonight. But just a very, very impressive showing by this group. And I think the place to start is what we've talked about with the growth of this team. And again, it's not a small sample size anymore. This is 18 official games, 19 unofficially that we've seen this from this group. So about a quarter of the season that we've seen the Bucks playing like this versus the 2-8 start. As I've always preached, the truth is always somewhere in the middle. But there's a lot to really get behind in what we're seeing from this group. And what Doc Rivers said after the game tonight, that I forget what his exact verbiage was, but this is not a game we win earlier this season. And now, and probably not last year either. Now, not only are we winning these types of games, we're doing it with some cushion. Like this team, they understand what we want to do. DeLon Wright is more comfortable and situated with the offense. All of these guys. Ryan Rollins, and I'm sure we'll talk quite a bit about Ryan Rollins tonight. Top to bottom, we've talked about it many times, Brandon. The roster just makes sense now, and I think that's a big part of what you're seeing.
Man, spot on, Justin. Great opening statement there. I think this is a terrific win. I think it's a terrific win, and I know the Bulls are 13-17. They didn't have Lonzo Ball, but the Bucks didn't have Giannis, and the Bucks didn't have Damian Lillard. And you and I, Justin, had talked about on Saturday, okay, you win the NBA Cup, you prove to yourself and to a lot of people that you can beat these top-tier teams. You beat Atlanta, you beat Orlando, you obviously took care of business against Oklahoma City, but then Friday was kind of I don't want to say a scheduled loss, but a loss where they were kind of not thrilled with how that lined up. And then you come home on Saturday and took care of business again without Giannis, without Dame, against a team that you should have beat. We didn't see that, Justin, at the beginning part of the year. They struggled in those games. They lost games that they probably should not have lost. And then tonight was another one of those where you don't have, Damian Lillard, don't have Giannis. Who's going to carry the load? Who's going to be out there, providing the scoring for the Bucks. You should have won this game, and that's exactly what they did. And I know this isn't an elementary school team where you're just, you go out there and do what you're supposed to do. But when you start the year 2-8 and things aren't going good for you, these are the type of things that you need to do. You need to be able to stack wins, and that's exactly what they're doing. So I thought it was a terrific win. It was almost wire-to-wire domination tonight against a team that I guess has kind of turned into your rival. But before I toss it back over to you, Justin, we got to get 2 game balls. We got to go 2 game balls tonight. I was thinking about going 3 because it's Christmas, but it is Festivus.
One ball,
but I can have as many game balls as I want. So there's 2 game balls tonight. And Doc Rivers mentioned on Saturday after they beat the Wizards that he thought Chris Middleton looked his best on Saturday night. I think you would agree with that. I definitely agree with it. But tonight, I think Chris looked even better tonight. I mean, again, I mentioned it a few times. No Dame, no Giannis. Season high, 21 points for Chris, 9 of 15 shooting. He also had the 5 assists. Efficient, smooth. He literally looked like the old Chris Middleton that we've kind of grown accustomed to. And I thought he really helped settle them in as far as scoring goes with, that Bulls run in the second quarter. They had another one in the third quarter. I just thought he was exactly what this team needed. And going forward, he just looks really good coming off that off-season ankle surgery he had tonight. So Chris Middleton gets the first one. There you go. There we go. I like that. Thank you, Evan. Game ball number 2 tonight. Going out to a guy, Justin, that matched him in the scoring column. This one was kind of tough because I felt like this one could have gone between 2 players, but I'm going to give it to Brook Lopez. He helped get the Bucks off to that quick start in the opening quarter, 3 for 6 beyond the arc. Beyond the arc. Obviously, when your 2 guys are down, those top 2 guys outside of Chris Middleton, someone needed it to step up tonight. And I thought Brook delivered. And then you could mention BP, but I feel like BP has really strung these. I don't know. It feels like 2-3 weeks together where he is a double machine. 19 and 13 tonight. He was really good. I mean, he was fantastic tonight. So he's an honorable mention, but I'll go with Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez, who both stepped up without the Bucks' top 2 stars tonight. And now you look 4 games above 500, exactly what you and I had talked about doing on Saturday.
This has got to be the first time that this has happened. Bobby Portis, 2 consecutive games of leading the team in assists. His 14 assists over the past 2 games also has to be it's 2 games, but also has to be a high for him over 2-game span since 7 assists was his previous career high. I think I don't want to rehash everything we got into on Saturday, but I think Bobby Portis especially has kind of found his footing, and I don't want to say found his role because I think we know what his role is, but a lot with it has changed, and especially the minutes and how you utilize him, not only where he's positioned on the floor. And Doc talked about some of the shots that we've kind of talked about with Bobby too. I'm not telling you don't take these long mid-range shots, but maybe instead of the one that's 2 steps in front of the 3-point line, either take the 2 steps back or take 2 steps forward and shoot from there. Let's clean up some of that stuff. And I think we've seen a lot of it, but he's just, there's a lot behind this, 14-4 run that this team has been on since the 2-8 start. I will still say none of it translates to 14 wins if Giannis isn't playing like an MVP. But Bobby Portis playing the way that he has for certainly these last 2 games, but really the bulk of those 18 games, getting Chris Middleton back on the floor. And you can see it's still going to take a little bit of time for Chris. I agree with Doc's assessment of it was the best he's looked and he's looking better. He's still not there. And as he said, Doc, before the game tonight, you don't just miss 20-plus games and come back and okay, he's the same guy that we saw in the playoffs. It's going to take a little bit of time, but things as small as Chris Middleton playing in both games of back-to-back and just having his presence on the floor has changed things. The impact of the young guys and what they've done has changed things for this group. The defense, all the numbers that you can point to with this team looking more and more like they can flirt with a top 10 defense. That's been important. But if Giannis isn't playing like he did last year, in fairness, but like an MVP, we're not talking about a team going 14-4. So he is still the biggest piece of it. In the meantime, you got to get everything else around him to work. And that's what we've seen for going on 2 months now. These 18 games that we're talking about. Like, I do believe this really started early in November during that 2-8 run or during that 2-8 stretch of their schedule in terms of the results. They just weren't winning the games earlier. They were playing better. You look back to both games against the Cavs, the first game against the Celtics. They were playing better. They just weren't winning games. And then you started to win. And now this is largely what we've seen from this group that, again, it's early, but they're giving you a lot of reasons for optimism and reasons to believe this year might be different. And if they can stay healthy, this stuff translates into the playoffs.
Absolutely.
855-616-1620, the number to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. And Brandon, I do, since we're in the holiday season.
Well, you're giving me a present.
Every day is a gift with you.
I appreciate that. That was the nicest thing you've ever said.
I want to take a look at some of the gifts that the Bucks have gotten so far this season. We'll do that coming up next.
Ooh, good.
This is Bucks Talk.
So how do you underpromise and still get the job? We believe in our hearts we're going to do great work for you. We're just really careful about making unrealistic promises. At Semper Fi, we refuse to set the bar higher than we can jump. But be assured, that's the goal. To do all we can to jump as high as possible to try to exceed your expectations. We're looking to break records. That's how you win over customers, get really great referrals, and build a great business. When you're making a decision to hire an exterior remodeling company, character, integrity, and the feeling that the people you're about to hire are truly eager to show you how good they are should stand at the top of your list. This is Brad Youngluth with Semper Fi Roofing and Exteriors, your local, veteran-owned and operated exterior remodeling company. For your new roof, siding, window and door installation, or masonry work, you can count on Semper Fi to keep you safe, warm, and dry.
We keep you safe, warm, and dry. Semper Fi.
What's on your wrist, Ben?
A watch.
The other wrist.
Oh, I'm handcuffed to a briefcase containing secret plans.
Why?
We can't let these secret plans fall into the wrong hands.
What secret plans?
This briefcase contains the specifications for the mother of all Penny Mustard bedroom collections.
The colonial bedroom?
Quiet, Nicole.
It's no secret the colonial bedroom is gorgeous.
American made with solid wood and forever tight bed brackets.
And the drawer bottom's strong enough to stand on.
Will you please keep it down?
In Penny Mustard's 3-decade existence, there's never been a bedroom more carefully constructed than the Colonial Collection.
Precisely why these trade secrets need to stay under wraps.
Heck no. We need to tell the world about the Colonial Bedroom.
You'd make a terrible spy, Arvid.
Come see the Colonial Bedroom with queen-size bed, 6-drawer dresser, mirror, and nightstand, starting at $88.41 at Penny Mustard.
Showrooms in Milwaukee and Chicago.
PennyMustard.com.
Secret versions of what people want.
Penny Mustard Furnishing.
If you're seeking Lake Country's finest, don't miss out on the Westerly, opening this spring.
It's close to shopping, easy access to Highway 94. I've never tried a golf simulator, so for sure I'll try that. I'm looking forward to some classes in the pool. Heated. When I'm ready for assisted living, I don't have to leave my apartment. They will take care of me right in my familiar surroundings. That is very important to me.
The Westerly has you covered. Apartment reservations are booking quickly. Visit livingwesterly.com.
Welcome back to Bucks Talk.
Chris being defended tightly by DeSumo. Puts it on the floor. Fading and firing. Tough shot, and he just splashes it through again. Chris Middleton is regaining that silky form. No doubt about it. He's got 14 points now.
Chris, Brooke Lopez, Bobby Portis, up and down the list tonight. You got impacts from second consecutive game. Everybody that stepped on the floor contributed in some way, shape, or form. I do want to point out, DeLon Wright was pretty good tonight, and I'm not going to tell you one game is a season, but I know there's been a lot of consternation surrounding DeLon Wright, and especially when you see Ryan Rollins doing what he's done in the limited opportunities that he's gotten. I talked about this on a different show earlier this morning of let's just be patient with DeLon Wright. I think he has been perfectly fine, and that drew some pushback to say, oh, he hasn't been good. Guys, we saw what wasn't good last year. I don't think we're there with this group this year. Like last year, the atrocious label and everything else that you can come up with, all of your hyperbolic responses to how bad things are. We saw that last year. This is not close to what we saw last year. I think DeLon Wright has been perfectly fine. He's been dealing with an injury earlier this season. He's still, as we talked about, Bobby Portis kind of finding the Bobby 2.0 role for this group. DeLon Wright is still trying to find what his role is, period. In and out of the lineup. Didn't play when Chris Middleton returned. Again, the injury that he dealt with. It's been up and down at times. But what I would add is, look, I get the intrigue with Ryan Rollins, and that's tough to escape when you continue to see more and more from him. A chase down block tonight. I mean, he does have a near 7-foot wingspan. But I think given what you need, it's the backup point guard on a team that has Damian Lillard, Giannis, Chris Middleton. Like, I would argue the importance of roles for, like, Taurean Prince and Gary Trent Jr., those roles are more important than what DeLon Wright is asking you. So maybe he hasn't wowed you, but it's still very early, and we've seen DeLon Wright do this in the playoffs. So I get the Ryan Rollins hype. We're going to get there in just a second. But let's slow down on the, hey, he's got to move. He's got to jump directly in front of DeLon Wright. DeLon Wright's been a disappointment. Like, let's just wait until we get to the second half of the season, see everything that changes, and see what DeLon Wright can bring you in the post.
And injuries are going to happen, Justin. Like, you know what I mean? You're going to have that. And just to add to your point real quick, I know you're getting to the gifts the Bucks are given. I know how much you love plus or minus tonight. I know it's your stat. You always, for people listening, he's always texting me about plus or minus. Anyway, do you want to take a guess on who had the highest plus or minus tonight?
I mean, I would guess DeLon Wright.
Yeah. Bingo. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah. I would agree with you. Great night tonight from him.
Yeah, and Doc said it was his best night. I'll say this, though, as we kind of transition into what I mentioned of all these gifts that the Bucks have gotten. It's hard not to watch Ryan Rollins and think, whose minutes does he have to start taking? Because, like, this guy is really giving you something. He plays so under control for a player as inexperienced as he is at the NBA level, as young as he is there in that sense. That's what stands out the most to me. Like, the physical tools, obviously. He's not just a shooter. We see him comfortably put the ball on the floor and attack. He's worked on things like a floater game as well, which for his size will be huge for him. But he's just such a calming presence for essentially a rookie. Like, that's what stands out the most to me.
That block, Justin, on that fast break, and I know the Bulls eventually they scored on it. I don't remember who I think it was it Levine? I don't remember who he blocked
Levine
initially.
Scored. I think it was
Kobe White,
either Kobe White or DeSumo that he blocked.
I mean, dude, like that was incredible. The effort, and that's from your point guard. I mean, defensively, and this is where it goes back to back in the summer, I tweeted it out. I just didn't think John Horst was getting a lot of credit for the offseason that he had, because it felt like the Bucks, and I didn't know about Ryan Rollins and this part of it. I'm talking about DeLon Wright. I'm talking about Andre Jackson, Gary Trent Jr. and Taurean Prince. And these are three players that I don't know where the Bucks, I mean, I know they started off 2-8, but like the turnaround had a lot to do with how good Taurean Prince was playing in the first month of the season. I mean, he was kind of being that third leg as far as scoring goes for the Bucks and shooting his best that he's ever shot the ball. So I think Bucks fans really need to appreciate the job that John Horst did this offseason, and it went under the radar because a lot of these contracts were vet mins, or if not all of them, and it just makes sense. And you have a lot of flexibility that if something happens to DeLon Wright, you have the ability to insert Ryan Rollins, and you're not losing much of anything between those two guys. And at the end of it, you have Pat Connaughton, who I thought has still played relatively good basketball when he's been into the lineup this year. I mean, there's just a ton of darts that the Bucks can throw to the wall and see what sticks on certain matchups. And when you have your top two, I mean, Justin, really though, how many teams, and I know the Bulls aren't good, but if you take the two best players on most teams, I don't know if they win by 20 points. 21 points. Like, I just don't know if there's a lot of teams out there. And I'm not saying that the Bulls are a juggernaut by any stretch of the imagination, but they had their best player on the floor tonight, and the Bucks handled business without their two best players on the floor.
This one, it could have gone a number of different ways, where there's only been a couple of those games this season. We're going into the game. I'll talk about it with Dave or a few others as we get set. I'm like, I have no idea what to make.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have no idea which way this could go. I could see the Bucks winning a close game. I could see the Bucks losing a close game. I could see the Bulls just saying, hey, we got more firepower with Giannis and Dame off the floor, and the Bulls winning by double digits. Like, this could have gone so many ways, and it wasn't a wire-to-wire win, but the Bucks were in control for most of this game. And I think the biggest part was those role players with the defense of Ryan Rollins. Doc had some pretty lofty praise for Ryan Rollins, DeLon Wright, and everybody on the perimeter, really, because the Bulls, they missed a lot of shots, but the Bucks weren't giving up clean looks all night. They did a really good job, as Doc explained, of making sure their guards didn't get into the paint, because that's what killed the Bucks. The first time these two teams met in Milwaukee, the Bulls were touching paint, and the Bucks would have to react and many times overreact and collapse their defense, and it just led to wide open shooters in the corner or on the perimeter. You saw almost none of that tonight, and I think that really speaks to the strides that this defense has made over the course of these last, 6 to 7 weeks. So I think that's the place to start when we talk about some of these gifts that the Bucks have received this season. We'll get into that conversation and open up those presents, unwrap the gifts after this on Bucks Talk.
You're listening to Bucks Talk.
A buck doesn't buy much unless you're spending it at Griffin. For just $1 over cost, you can buy brand new tires from us. This is Jim Griffin. Any major brand, $1 over our cost with free tire repair and lifetime rotation. We'll even show you the invoice to prove it. Our only requirements, we put them on for you. Buy one or the whole set. The dollar deal from Griffin. Milwaukee, Waukesha, Fort Atkinson, and Jefferson. Griffin. The buck stops here. The deals on tires don't. That's Griffin.
Not combinable with other tire offers.
In 1964, we were making strides towards space travel.
Mary Poppins was the #1 movie in theaters.
And the Beatles were taking America by storm.
Which was long before I was born.
Facts. 1964 is also the year it all started for Richlands Tire and Service Centers. 60 years of continuous growth and more happy customers than you can shake a stick at.
Okay, the streamers are a bit overkill. It's just us in the studio.
All right. But it's important to know accomplishments like these aren't possible without a dedicated team. So hats off to them and our founder, my dad, Dick Mitchke, for understanding the importance of customer focus.
Facts. There's no 60 years of anything without you, the customer, which is why our focus will remain on you and only you for years to come.
Thank you from all of us here at Richlands Tire and Service Centers.
Richlands Tire and Service, such a refreshing change. Richlands.
Every day, Wisconsin's 600,000 family caregivers help their loved ones to continue living safely in their own homes. It's not easy. Each year, they spend an average of $7,000 out of their own pockets to provide this care. Wisconsin needs family caregivers, and they need more support. Tell your state lawmakers, Wisconsin family caregivers need a caregiver tax credit in 2025. Learn more at aarp.org/WI. That's aarp.org/WI. Paid for by AARP Wisconsin.
Tune in on Sundays at 10 a.m. for the AccuNet Mortgage and Realty Show. Join AccuNet's Brian and David Wickert for the most up-to-date information on mortgage trends, along with timely news on the real estate market. The housing market is in flux, but the national headlines don't often fit local market conditions. Find out what's really happening on the front lines of real estate and mortgage financing in Wisconsin and make better decisions by tuning in every Sunday at 10 a.m. The AccuNet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian and David Wickert on WTMJ.
The Roundball Repartee returns. This is Bucks Talk.
Rebound ripped down by Prince. He moves it ahead to Wright. DeLon Wright sees the opening. Works it to the corner. Another catch and shoot three from Gary Trent. It's the same result. Buries another one. It's a 9-0 scoring run, and Gary Trent with back-to-back bombs.
This is the last game the Bucks will play before Christmas, including Christmas Day. For the first time in 7 years, they are not one of the 10 teams that will be featured on Christmas Day. I do want to talk about that a bit in a second, but Brandon, if we look at this team, it can be a player, it can be a coach, it can be something that they're doing differently. Those are the gifts that we're looking at, the new presents that the Bucks have received this season. What's the best gift they've had so far?
Oof, man, that is a really, really good question.
Best gift they've gotten so far, I should say.
I'm gonna kind of take it. I'm gonna take the easy way out, Justin. I could go a few different ways with this, but I'm going to go with the easiest answer, and that's Giannis. I know that people throughout the NBA don't appreciate him, but I don't think sometimes we know how great of a player not only is he is on the court, but off the court, but on both ends of the court. I mean, he's at one point in this season, I don't know if he still is, but he was leading the NBA in scoring. He's averaging a double-double. He's playing defense arguably better than anybody else. You know, when you talk about superstar players throughout the NBA, there was a highlight that made the waves on social media, I think, last week of a last-second shot that went in, and Jokic kind of just watched it. Yeah, Giannis isn't sitting.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean, though.
But yeah, I think the case is he is the best two-way player in the league.
I don't think that's necessarily up for a debate either. And I think that's what I think he's the best gift to Milwaukee, because when your star player, when the guy that's making $48.7 million this year on his contract alone is given everything he's got on a November night, on a Tuesday night, Justin, or wherever, whenever they're playing, that radiates through a locker room. And then you see guys like Ryan Rollins going up for a block on a dunk attempt that most players would have probably just let go. And you see guys diving out on the floor and going out and doing the little things because they're watching the best player in the NBA do that. And it's a great question that you proposed there, because I feel like you could go in a few different ways, but I just look at when your best player is doing all the little things the right way, and I think that radiates in the locker room. And I think that, the younger guys, the Andre Jackson Juniors and the Ryan Rollins and the AJ Greens kind of pick up on that. And you saw there's a video the Bucks tweeted out of him kind of talking through Ryan Rollins after he had a foul that Doc Rivers pulled him out after. Like he's the leader that we need him to be, but he's the best basketball player to ever wear a Bucks uniform, but he's also the best basketball player right now in the NBA, and certainly the best two-way player. So when you have that in your hands, I just think that everybody benefits from that, and everybody ups their game even a little bit more. And Damian Lillard mentioned it, how he thinks he should, be in the running for the MVP this year. And I don't know. I love the question because it really gets you thinking, and I could go probably three other ways, but I love Giannis, man, and I love what he brings to this basketball team.
So your answer is basically it's the end of Christmas Day, and your parents ask you, like, what was the favorite gift that you got, Brandon? And yours, the gift of life, and I'm here every day. Like that's how you're.
That's it.
With Giannis.
That's it. I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's definitely not a wrong answer here. It's a fantastic question. Definitely not a wrong answer. It's a fun question for sure.
I'll limit mine to something new. I'm really, really drawn to Greg Buckner because, as we've said, it's 18 games of a sample size, and you can try to shoot holes in it with the schedule and the level of competition. But what I would say is, even early in the season, the defense was better, and I know we mentioned it in those first 10 games. Like, if you want to differentiate whose opinions you can start to filter out, just listen to the group that is telling you the Bucks' perimeter defense is it's a huge problem, and that's why they're 2-8 right now, because that was not the issue with that 2-8 start. The defense played better early on in the season, but as it started to find its footing, even though they weren't winning games, it wasn't the defense that was the issue. The offense was still clunky. I mean, the offense was in the 20s for a large part of the first month of the season. I just look back at that stretch, and I forget what the dates were. But when you had games against the Cavs, against the Celtics, against the Knicks, and it was I think it was a 10-game stretch we were looking at where 4 of your games were against those teams, and your defense was still in the top 10. And I mention those teams because those at the time, and they're still up there, but those at the time were the top 3 offenses in the league. So why I say the gift of Greg Buckner in this defense is, number one, in the offseason, we heard Doc Rivers really gassing him up of how many years he tried to get him on his staff when he was in Philly, and he just never left because of the close relationship that he had with J.B. Bickerstaff. Mm-hmm. And when J.B. was fired, Doc said, I kind of felt bad, but I called him immediately, and I said, look, he's probably going to get another job, but maybe it's not this year. Maybe it's not a situation that you want to go to immediately. What about this that I'm offering you? And Greg Buckner jumped at it, and we saw eventually J.B. Bickerstaff landed in Detroit with the Pistons. But the fact that the defense has held up against very good offenses, it is clearly much improved from where it was a year ago. That passes the eye test. The metrics, I talked about it on Buck Shoot Around, all these numbers that you can throw around there, 4 factors, they call it. Like, those are the things that you look at to say, how well are these teams performing? You look at a defensive rebound rate for the defensive side, defensive rebounding rate. What is the opponent's effective field goal percentage? What's your defensive rating? What's your foul rate? The Bucks are creeping up into the top 10 in each of those categories. We did not see that. You could cherry pick any segment of the season you wanted a year ago. We never saw anything close to that. And from the start, we talked about building this defense inside out and looking back at those Cavs teams and what Greg Buckner did, where I believe they finished no lower than 11th defensively in each of those seasons that he was the associate head coach and basically defensive coordinator of the Cavs. They were built around Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, giving you pieces of rim protection in the case of Evan Mobley, a guy that could protect the rim, could play on the perimeter as well, could defend really 1 through 5 or 2 through 5. And you look at it and you said, I know it's not like, I know this isn't the Spider-Man meme necessarily, but I could see Giannis and Brook Lopez fitting those roles. And the Cavs did. Isaac Okoro is very good. Other than that, they don't have what I would call elite perimeter defenders on the team, and they managed to get by with 2 undersized guards because of that defense on the back end and saying, we're just going to take away the easy stuff and we're going to rotate on threes. That's what the Bucks have been doing this season. Again, they don't have elite perimeter defenders. They have capable and they have willing defenders, and they have great rim protection.
I would put Andre as elite.
He's not elite.
I would.
But
what do you need to see from him to be elite?
You need to see a track record. We need to see this year after year after year. And I would just say this, too. I would not I would not use any of the individual defensive rating numbers that are out there as gospel.
All right, fair.
Like I have talked with people in the league as well who will tell you these aren't accurate. We don't look at this because there are so many variables on the defensive end of who, like, when he's the primary defender, this is what happens. Well, maybe, but it also depends on what the scheme is that we're running, what else was on the floor. Was he actually the defender, or were you just associating him with that because he was the closest guy in the play? So I've just heard nothing but, yeah, I mean, maybe it can back up the eye test for you, but the numbers are not what I would use as accurate from a lot of people within the league in data science levels with teams too that say this isn't it. But I mean, look, he has a chance to be there. He is certainly impactful, and the Bucks didn't have anything like that a year ago. I mean, we can point to Andre Jackson Jr. in the moments that they played him, but what did we talk about with Ajax last year? The fouls. Yeah, great, he's showing you something, but man, he's just picking up fouls. Like, that part has been gone. It's almost as if he took it and just threw it on A.J. Green this year. So that was really that in his offense. The two biggest questions attached to him coming into this season of you were hopeful, you think there's something there, but he's got to stay out of foul trouble. And, I mean, it's still an open question of how many minutes can we play him offensively and what are the spots where you can play him. But credit to him because he has made the most of the opportunities and the minutes that he's on the floor. And again, credit to Doc Rivers and the rest of the coaching staff for not saying there's too many questions offensively, we can't play him, of figuring out how do we keep him on the floor as long as possible and knowing, okay, it's time that it's just not working. We still see games where he's playing high 20s in 30 minutes. You still see a handful of games where it's 9 minutes from him too. And to me, that's what stands out the most, and that's a testament to Doc Rivers and the coaching staff.
Yeah, and I think I agree. I mean, I get it. You need a track record, but I don't know what his rating is, defensively off the top of my head. I don't have those numbers, but I think when you look at the eye test and who he's assigned to every game, I think that to me speaks a lot, of the guy that you're referencing and Greg Buckner. As well as Doc Rivers on what they think of Andre Jackson Jr. And I don't know. You watch more basketball than me, Justin. You know more basketball than me, but I haven't seen, in the games that I have watched that are not the Bucks.
To that point, when you watch these games, guys may get their point. He makes them work.
Yeah.
There's no blow-bys. Yeah, there's no blow-bys. There's no easy looks. Like, he's contesting shots, and he makes you work to get your points.
And he don't care if he scores or not. Like, there's other great players, like other great defensive players that you could toss into the conversation. I'm not saying he's the best defensive player, in the NBA or in the top 5 or whatever. Obviously, he might not even be the best on the team with the way that Giannis plays defense. But as far as perimeter, I think that goes without question. He's the team's best perimeter defender. And Ryan Rollins, I think, too, he's got a lot, to kind of prove yet as well. But I think that's another conversation that we can have in a few months. And that's what makes this so great, Justin, is because we're having an argument about who's the better perimeter defender or who's the better defender. And is Andre Jackson Jr. elite or is he not elite? I mean, that is such a great problem and a great discussion to have when you're in December 23rd and you got 5 months or so before real basketball starts playing. I mean, this team is the optimism I feel around this team. It's amazing. It's such a 180 from where you and I were, a month and a half ago. And credit to Greg Buckner, credit to Giannis, credit to Doc Rivers as well, because I think with his calming voice in that locker room and his presence and his, basketball record, I think that's, eluded a lot of confidence into this team.
Some more thoughts on this. I do want to pick some more of this up with the defense and some of the things that we've seen. To me, it's really been one big thing for the Bucks' defensive turnaround. Greg Buckner is a huge part of it, but I'm going to distill it down to what it really has been for this group this season. We'll get into that next.
The Hardwood Homilies continue after this. This is Bucks Talk.
If you're concerned about heart health, remember that you are not powerless. At the Froedtert and the Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network, we're pushing to outsmart heart and vascular disease by helping to assess your risks and guide you to heart strength, by providing breakthrough research and renowned expertise for treating common conditions and the most serious. Let's stay out in front of heart and vascular disease and embrace every day life has to offer. Learn more at froedtert.com/heart.
Do you love the simplicity and enduring quality of Scandinavian design? Then the Fjords factory-sponsored sale at Ken Michaels Furniture is for you. Inspired by tradition and built to last, Fjords brings the best of modern Norwegian design to your home. Save 20% on these ergonomic recliners and sofas engineered with comfort in mind. Available with manual or power options. Stop in today and save 20% on Ken Michaels Furniture on Capitol Drive in Brookfield, Highway 100 in Greenfield, or our downtown factory showroom. Get a better night's sleep and save money on a Milwaukee mattress. For over 70 years, our family has been making mattresses and selling them direct to your family. By cutting out distribution costs, you can save up to 50% and get a better night's sleep on a premium mattress. Go green with natural latex. Reduce tossing and turning at night by reducing pressure points on your body. This is one of our most popular mattresses. Stop in today and take a test rest at any of our Ken Michaels Furniture locations in Greenfield, Brookfield, or downtown.
This holiday season, give the gift of power and precision with Works Power Tools at Menards. Whether you're building, fixing, or crafting, Works drills deliver the power and control for any project. For those tougher jobs, Works impact drivers provide all the torque needed to make heavy-duty tasks a breeze. Hurry in today and pick up your 20-volt Works cordless drill or driver now at Menards.
Warm season's greetings to you all from Menards.
When you meet Jesus, you meet someone whose love for you is so great that you find yourself wanting to be better, different, more like Jesus, the one who has given everything for you.
People make New Year's resolutions in hopes of becoming a better version of themselves. But is self-improvement selfish? Dr. Chad Lakees talks about becoming a better you for the sake of others this week on the Lutheran Hour.
Sunday mornings at 6:30 on WTMJ.
This is Bucks Talk.
Sleigh bells ring. Middleton's got it. He works around a screen from Portis. Fades and fires on the baseline. What a shot. I'll tell you, he is back. Chris Middleton's got 21 points now, and it's been shots like that throughout this game tonight. He is looking razor sharp.
Yeah, it helps to have Chris Middleton giving you 20 points. What, 21 did he finish with?
21, yep.
So there's an account on, I think, Bucks Reddit that daily is posting Chris Middleton highlights with the Chris Middleton highlights every day until he scores 22 in a game. So sadly, this account is going to have to work through the holidays here. But yeah, I said we distill this down to what it really is defensively. So for those that don't know, I work in analytics outside of this. And this, I mean, you're speaking my language when we get into these discussions. Limit your liabilities. That is what the Bucks have done defensively. So you think about last year when it was not a very good defense. Everybody pointed to, well, Damian Lillard is a defensive liability. We had the Malik Beasley discussion time and time again last year. But up and down the roster, questions about Chris Middleton's athletic ability. Is that starting to become limited? The Bucks just had so many groupings that they would put out there where you had two or more liabilities, and that is never going to work with high-caliber athletes, the best players in the world, that can pick apart mismatches. Like, if that's what you're rolling with, there is always going to be a place to attack. You can get by if you have one of those guys. If everybody else around them is a strong enough defender, if you are a good team defense, if you're connected as a team defensively, you can get by with one of those liabilities on the defensive end. But as you start to accumulate more, and those are the lineups that you're running out there, that's where you run into a lot of problems. And that's what the Bucks were doing last year, where you had two on the floor almost all the time. And at times it would be more than two of those liabilities where you just look up and down and say, well, we're going to have to outscore teams. That didn't work last year. This year, they have limited those liabilities where, at any given moment, you may have 1, 2 at the most that we've seen a handful of times. But this group is much more connected defensively. They have moved a little bit closer. I don't think it's not the same system that they ran under Bud, but there's a lot of principles of that. And, Doc Rivers will say this a lot, too, that offense and defense, a lot of it is there's so much overlap that, unless you're doing something drastically different, a lot of teams are running a lot of the same stuff. It just depends on your personnel. But I think they've been very comfortable with the scheme that they've run, and they have been able to minimize the damage by limiting your liabilities. And a big piece of that, too, is your roster construction. That I cannot state enough. Malik Beasley makes sense on the Bucks, and especially makes sense as your starting 2 guard when he's playing next to Drew Holiday, which at the time of his signing, you thought that was going to be the case. And once that changed, as we saw, it changed so much. The ripple effect that created with how this team changed their identity on the fly. They changed their point guards, and they could not have been any more different in what they brought to the team. It was an adjustment for the group as a whole to play around the new point guard and figure out, okay, we got to do these things differently on both ends of the floor. It took the year for this team to kind of sort all that out and figure out what they were going to do. And frankly, I think the numbers back this up. I don't know how much buy-in there was last year, especially early in the season.
Yeah.
And it has clearly been there from the start this season.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Well, obviously the roster construction is vastly different than it was a year ago. But to go to your point too, Justin, just to add to it, I mean, how many times do we see teams who are great offensively into the playoffs but can't stop a nosebleed at, first or second round exit? I mean, the Bucks have been a part of that. Obviously, they've had their own issues with injuries into the postseason. We saw one reach
the conference finals last year.
I guess, yeah, I suppose that's a good point.
Granted, they were aided by some pretty significant injuries, and
I was gonna say, yeah, I mean, but like to go to your point though, because I completely agree with you. I think that when it comes to playoff basketball, like the game naturally slows down a little bit. It's more of those half court sets, and you got to get stops. Now the Bucks don't have. You and I were just talking about perimeter defense. I don't think they have anybody that matches the level of where Drew Holiday was in 2021, but. Like the Bucks don't win that championship without playing, really good defense. They weren't great offensively. They were good. They weren't great, but they were really great defensively. And that's, you and I had talked about, their identity. I really hope that this is an identity for this team. And I think the points will come. They can score. Giannis, when the Bucks are fully healthy, I think the offense is not going to be an issue. But if you can hold teams, I mean, tonight you had your best defensive player out of the game and you held your team to 91 points at home. Like, I just think that speaks volumes on the team identity, where this team kind of flipped in that first or second week in November where things started to really drastically change. And, going back to the gift that you gave Greg Buckner and described on why Bucks fans should be, thankful for him. I'm proving your point to be a little bit better than mine, unfortunately, and that's okay because the Bucks are winning, so I'll take it. But yeah, I mean it's a great feeling right now within where this Bucks team was, where they're going, obviously, and where they're at right now.
Yeah, and boy, it just seems like. And everything has been coming up Bucks here recently. You win the NBA Cup, you're playing much better. The schedule, the other shoe will drop. So there's going to be another stretch where they lose a couple of games in a row. But what they've started to build here defensively, and again, winning these last 2 games without Giannis and Damian Lillard, even though it's the 4-win Washington Wizards, even though it's the Bulls below 500 tonight, they still had Vooch and Zach LaVine on the floor.
Absolutely.
And Kobe White.
Yeah.
So it's something we've seen the Bucks struggle with quite a bit, last year especially. And they're just, I keep going back to this too, Brandon. Honestly, what stands out the most to me about this quarter of the season where they've gone 14-4 since the 2-8 start. What stands out the most, honestly, is I think it was you that brought up a week or so ago about you just feel more confident in this group now than you did at any point last year.
Yep.
Last year when they were winning games, they were winning with their talent alone because of their talent, and you would see these games where you would still struggle with some things, and it would still be competitive when you were full strength or as close as we saw the Bucks for extended periods last year to full strength, and you were playing inferior teams, and you were like, yeah, they won, but like go back to those two Pistons games shortly before the coaching change. You're like, yeah, they won, but you really need overtime to beat this historically bad Detroit Pistons team. That's been gone. Like, we haven't seen any of those yo-yos throughout the course of a game. That was kind of a Buck staple last year, where you're up 10 and maybe you jump around and you come back to the game 15 minutes later, you're like, they're down 17? They were just up by 10. Like, all that stuff's been gone for 5 or 6 weeks now.
Yeah, and that, you're absolutely right. I remember them being like, when did they fire Adrian Griffin? Were they 30-13 when they fired him? I can't remember what their record. Yeah, and that was like a lot of the rhetoric online was like, wow, like this is the first time a coach has been fired, blah blah blah, with this kind of record, and the Bucks have 30 wins in their first 43 games. And then I'm yelling at people because I'm like, you clearly haven't watched a game this year, and I don't want anybody to lose their job. I wasn't hoping that Adrian Griffin was fired. I hated that for him personally, but like you never really got that sense that it was the right fit from last year. I feel like that's different this year. And I said the statement you said about, I can't really put my finger on it. I think I've identified that it's Doc Rivers at this point. Now, obviously, Dame and Giannis help with that, and you and I had talked about the roster construction. I know he gets a lot of heat as well, and that's another conversation for another day, but, like, I feel really good about this head coach that the Bucks hired midway through last year, and I really, really like, you mentioned Buckner, I really like the assistant coaches that he's also brought in outside of Buckner, Dave Yeager, and a handful of other guys that have been head coaches in the league. And I think that's maybe where my confidence goes to, Justin, because these guys, I think, have identified that, the strength of this team is defense, and we can score when we need to score, and we're going to throw, tons of different guys at you, defensively and offensively. So maybe that's where my confidence is starting to trend towards. I just feel really good about this coaching staff on this Milwaukee Bucks team.
Yeah, Dave Yeager, Rex Kalamian, who's been with Doc for a number of years, dating back to the Clippers. Obviously, Joe Prunty, the Prunt Dog, still on the staff. Vin Baker and the work that he's put in with Giannis now.
Vin Baker, yep.
Assuming that role. Pete Dominguez, another guy to keep an eye on, who's been coaching the Summer League team. So that's the other piece. When you talk about the differences last year and reasons to inspire confidence, is last year there was a big question mark with the coaching staff. We'll finish that point and look ahead to the day after Christmas. No Bucks on Christmas Day this year for the first time in 7 years. We'll preview the matchup with the Brooklyn Nets after this on Bucks Talk.
This is Bucks Talk.
Call quality for the signature service you deserve.
This is Anthony Zaneski with Quality. Because we are truly local and family owned, I think that lends to the trust you can have in our company. And that means when we put out a promotion like this, it's always going to be a deal that you can believe in. So here we go. When you buy an Armstrong heating and cooling system, we'll give you the choice of a legitimate $1,700 off or a free water heater. And with federal and state money helping you pay for the HVAC upgrade, that will make this deal even better. Now, the average life of a water heater is 6 to 9 years. Yours is probably past that or getting there. So before you walk into a flooded basement, you can take care of this and upgrade a big part of your home's inner workings and get a pretty good deal at the same time. So call Quality and get a free water heater when you upgrade your home's HVAC system.
Call quality for the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality, now offering heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric.
Downy Rinse and Refresh. Break up with stinky clothes.
Rinse it out.
Every now and then I get a little bit tired of the stinks that just will never come out.
Oh, Downy in the rinse change.
Every now and then I rinse it out. One wash and it delivers. One wash wash, it smells so clean. Downy Rinse and Refresh, it's a dream.
Downy Rinse and Refresh fights odor in just one wash, guaranteed.
Why pay more for prescriptions? Stop overpaying and start saving with SingleCare. It's easy. Find your prescription on singlecare.com, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and start saving. SingleCare works at pharmacies nationwide and is completely free to use, whether you have insurance or not. So the next time you fill a prescription, check SingleCare to make sure you're getting the best price. Take control of your prescription costs. Go to singlecare.com or download the free app today.
The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. God's promise is fulfilled. Archbishop Listecki here. God has seen fit to bless us with the gift of his Son, Emmanuel. God is with us. This is an incredible gift of God's love for us. But like all gifts, it needs to be opened and shared. Through his Son, we are joined together as one family in the common bond of God's love. Blessings to all for a Merry Christmas. Join us at Mass.
Welcome back to Bucks Talk.
The coaching staff this year, a big difference too. I mean, I know Rex Kalamian and Dave Yeager were both there with Doc last year. So was Joe Prunty. So was Vin Baker. But when we started the season last year, you didn't even have Terry Stotts, who left in the preseason. It was basically Joe Prunty at that point. Was the only guy with experience, a front row coach, assistant coach. You had a lot of young guys and a lot of guys that worked with Griff in Toronto, but that brought a lot of questions of what did this guy run? You know, like how much experience does he have in these types of situations? And it was just, you went from one extreme to the other because you think back to Bud's staff and look at all the guys that went into other things and head coaching jobs with Bud. Charles Lee is coaching the Charlotte Hornets now. Obviously, what we saw Taylor Jenkins do with the Memphis Grizzlies and building up that culture and putting that team in the place that they are now. Other guys that maybe not with Milwaukee, but along the way with Bud, like what we're seeing, Kenny Atkinson, who was linked to the Bucks and now leading the Cavaliers to the record that he is. The guys that replace them, if you're replacing those coaches, you're bringing something to the table. Quinn Snyder, too, with the Atlanta Hawks. So you knew there was something there with that coaching staff. It was a strength of the Bucks, and you went from that to a lot of young, inexperienced coaches. And now you've gone back in the other direction. I think that's a huge piece of it, too, when you think about guys that have experience wearing the whistle and being that main guy. Even Greg Buckner, the associate head coach with the Cavaliers, in the role that he's in now. So it has all started to fall into place, but the big, big next step for this team is, okay, you got a very interesting stretch to monitor in January when you start to play better teams. You got to start to win those games against the better teams. First time in 7 years, though, no Bucks game on Christmas Day. So I know Giannis
wasn't happy. Yeah.
Gave an interview. If you haven't checked that out, check that out with Eric Name of The Athletic, where Giannis even questioned it. But it means we at least get to have the day open, Brandon, and get 2 days off here. So
that's true.
Thursday night is when the Bucks return to the hardwood, hosting the Brooklyn Nets the day after Christmas. 7 o'clock tip, 6:30 is when our pregame coverage begins. And as always, be sure to stick around after the game for Bucks Talk. We will talk to you then.
By now, you've probably figured out what's most important to us at Semper Fi is our reputation. Building a great character-driven remodeling company is actually quite easy. It's just the first 20 years that are a bit challenging. Great companies are collections of great people, and we have great people. They're the ones that helped us build our reputation, but they only come after you've built something they want to be part of. We don't necessarily have to look for good people. They come to us. And that's what you want when you hire an exterior remodeling company. Someone who's going to stand behind their work, and a company that is truly proud of their people. And it's because they do great work. And when you're ready, we'll do great work for you too. This is Brad Youngluth with Semper Fi Roofing and Exteriors, your local, veteran-owned and operated exterior remodeling company. For your new roof, siding, window and door installation, or masonry work, you can count on Semper Fi to keep you safe, warm, and dry.
We keep you